Hello everyone, my name is Zach Driscoll, and this is my demonstration of my top-down shooter project for Milestone 1. To start, um, as you can see here, we have a very basic scene for the player to run around in. Nothing too fancy, just a couple small little retaining walls, a crate, and some trash cans with one of them being on fire. I don't know how to make fire particle effects yet, which I do intend to add later, but right now it's just a simple orange sphere. Next, we'll go ahead and get into the character and animations. So I have the Ybot character downloaded from Mixamo. I've got a bunch of these fun animations for movement. So if we go to the animator here, you can see my blend tree where I have animations for the player being idle, walking, running, and sprinting. And the animations will, they are intended to periodically start from walking and transition over time to the other two states, just depending on how long the player is holding that particular movement direction. And they currently have their own speed set by computing the positions based on velocity ZX. So their speeds will match the animation speed, so it looks very nice and fluid. I also, as my extra feature, have added a crouch mechanic, which has its own blend tree. Basically, they just have crouch and walk. Nice and smooth transition, where you could still be in the middle of running normally, and then while moving still press crouch and they'll crouch. Because I know there are some instances in games where maybe you have to stop moving and then crouch, but this isn't like that, which is nice. Let's see. Next, I will go ahead and I'll bring up the camera here. So I went ahead and made a camera follow script, so that way it will track the player's movement based on, well, it gets the set transform that you give it. In this case, I just went ahead and pulled the Ybot from the scene in here, and you get to play around with the offset as well as the speed at which the camera will follow. Alright, so next I'll go ahead and start pulling up the scripts here so you can take a cool look at them. So here in the pawn script, which is essentially going to be referencing a lot of things that the player themselves can do, and then this controller script will be handling a bit more of the technical stuff, is how we'll put it. So here we get the animators, that way we can have the player actually move based on their animations for the root motion, rather than just, say, using the rigid body or transform.position changes. Here I also have my Boolean for my crouch mechanic to essentially just help toggle on and off. I also will pass in a movement speed as well as a rotation speed, as the camera will, or as the player will rotate to follow the mouse. And in order to do that, the mouse will, essentially what happens is the camera tracks where the mouse is in screen space and shoots a raycast out to bring that mouse position into world space, so that way the player knows exactly where the mouse is in relation to itself mathematically. Down here we have the move function for the player. Honestly, pretty simple. We make sure that the move vector is multiplied by their speed, so that we can have some more freedom with that, as well as changing the floats used in the blend tree for the right and forward, essentially the X and Z planes. And then here we have that rotate to mouse function I mentioned earlier, where essentially, basically like I said, it's going to follow, or the player's going to rotate towards the mouse by calculating where the mouse is relative between screen and world space. And then here, crouch mechanic, I have it set to where you can crouch based on using left control or the C key. And essentially it just activates the Boolean and will start playing the crouch tree, so to speak. Next we have my controller script, where we have references to the pawn as well as the player camera. First, on start, we just want to make sure that the camera isn't null, so just a simple little check there, just in case. Here in update, we go ahead and actually apply those movements using the input get axis for horizontal and vertical. We also use clamp magnitude to essentially help lock down that speed transition I mentioned earlier with transitioning from walk to run to sprint. The clamp magnitude essentially helps limit that to a scale. Here we're calling the move function, as well as rotating and then crouching. So this rotate function, it goes hand in hand with this one here. It just does more of the mathematical calculations and actually using that raycast to find that position. And then here is my camera follow script, where I mentioned the players transform, the offset, and the speed. And then here it's pretty simple. You just tell it to understand the position of the transform and move to that position, while also accepting the offset at which you want the camera to be. Because if you didn't have that offset, then the camera would always be at the 0 position of the player, which I believe on the Y bot is at the very bottom of the feet. So basically the camera would always be just at the base of the player's feet, which I don't think anyone wants to see that. So here we'll actually get into some gameplay now. All right, go ahead and start. Sorry, Unity sometimes takes a little bit. All right, here we go. So as you can see, the camera was a bit zoomed out at first and then went ahead and zoomed in. And then as I move the player here, who's following the mouse, camera's moving right alongside them. Let's see, and then here, go ahead and crouch. And you can still move while crouching, and you do move slower, which I thought was really cool. And then, yep, you just kind of move. Kind of starts out a bit slower, but it's picking up a little bit of speed. It's not exactly a super quick transition, but that's okay. And then here, you know, there are these objects. I can't really do anything about them. Just kind of run into them, but they're there. And essentially, that's all I've got for you. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a fantastic day.